Welcome to episode 1 of AntiSocialMurderClub.
Welcome.
How's everybody doing on this fine Memorial Day weekend?
I hope you're full of cookout food.
Feeling patriotic?
Yep. Someone's dying here. So, that's what happens. Whatever. So,
This is a murder podcast.
yes, it is.
All right, so we've spoken about it. We've planned it out. We scratched ideas. We've finally done it.
And we're finally here.
Took
Took a few months of procrastinating, but we're here.
But we're here.
So, I guess we should start out by letting you know who we are. Okay, I'll go first. My name is Nia. I prefer to be called Milan, but whatever. Murder has been my life for a while now. Yeah.
All right, my name is Myra. I'm gonna tell y'all my whole government name here. But yeah, so quick intro there. I'm sure we'll talk further in depth in later episodes, but we just want to go get started right now. If you're ready, you ready?
Yeah.
We'll just take a quick drink of this here alcohol.
Yeah, I said we've just ripped the Band-Aid off and get going.
Yep. So this first episode, we're going to talk about the Freeway Phantom Killer, which is kind of like a hometown murder for us.
Yeah, shout out to
the
my favorite murder.
Oh yeah, shout out my favorite murder. Mm-hmm. So we reside in the DMV area. We are coming to you live from DC, actually, a couple of miles away from where these murders took place, which is wild.
I think one of them actually caught a bus up the street from here.
Yep, which just made it even creepier when researching it, because I was like, yo, I know where this is. Yeah. All right, so Freeway Phantom Killer, if I didn't say that before. And just a quick little intro to this. This is believed to be the first, or one of the first serial killings in the district, which is insane. So this happened in the early 70s, 1971, 1972 was like the main time frame that this happened. It spanned 16 months, so yeah, 1971, 1972. This is the killing of 6 young black girls. So they were aged from 10 to 18. So yeah, this is going to be a heavy hitter. Shout out last podcast on the left. They were strangled. I think a handful of them, maybe 4 out of 6, if I am not mistaken, were actually raped or sexually assaulted.
Yeah, well, definitely one of the bodies they couldn't tell what happened because it was so badly decomposed.
Yeah.
We'll get into that, but it's basically at the fault of the police.
Yep, and the case has never been solved, which is even creepier.
Cold case.
It's a cold case, yeah, and it seemed to have kind of been on the back burner for a couple years. And actually the reason that we're talking about this today is because I found an article on the Washington Post a couple weeks ago where they kind of revisited it, kind of gave everyone the 411 real quick, just so, which is what I appreciate about a lot of newspapers, is they don't want to let anyone forget about it. Mm-hmm. It's they kind of revisit, because the Washington Post, actually a lot of this comes from different articles from immediately after the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, and then 2018, the most recent one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is a really kind of confusing, bizarre case. Just because there's no pattern, and if you know serial killers, usually there's a pattern. But this one has no pattern, no obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, but there isn't, which makes it so bizarre. There were a handful of suspects, but nothing came of it. Mm-hmm. And then some of the most interesting things are, of course, the police botching the shit out of this.
I mean, it happens in a lot of these cases, I've noticed, especially these serial killer cases.
Exactly. Especially
with Dahmer.
Yeah.
What's the black serial killer?
The one from Cleveland?
Yeah.
Yep. That Cleveland, what is it, House of Horrors? That shit.
Oh, that one. Yeah. I was talking about the one with the guy who was taking the
the girl,
the prostitutes, and raping them and then hiding on the steps and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name they used for him, but the same thing. The police were called.
I think it was
times.
the Butcher or something.
They blamed the I
think that's what it was.
And the police was called several times, and they were this close. And each time, the same thing. So,
and I think we can go ahead and just jump to a conclusion here, which I'm pretty good at, is that police usually botch cases where it's minorities. Let's just go ahead and throw that one out there. You know, take that. I really don't care. All right, but I guess we can go ahead and get started with the victim. So we can just do like a quick intro of the victims, and then just as we go. All right, so we're going to start off with, it's April 25th, 1971. The first victim we're talking about is 13-year-old Carol Spinks, which is wild to think of. 13 is so young. So she was walking to a 7-Eleven just a couple blocks from her house off of, what is this? Help me out. Waller Place, Southeast?
That's what I would think it says.
All right, then. Waller. And so her older sister sends her out to buy a couple, like, some just necessities, bread, soda, TV dinners and stuff.
Yeah, her sister actually lived in an apartment across from her.
Yeah. And it seems like from what I read, Carol seemed to be kind of like alone in the house with her sister kind of just like keeping an eye on her. They
said her mom went to go visit, I think, a boyfriend, and her mom told her not to leave the house. But yet, her sister, I guess, tempted her with like some money or something like that.
It was just like, you go. So yeah, she's walking along. Her mom actually sees her going to the store, scolds her as mothers do, and was like, get your ass straight home after this, and we're gonna have a talk. So she goes to the store, but she never comes back. So about 6 days later, on May 1st of 1971, some kids were playing around this grassy area near 295, which is literally right around the corner.
Yeah, I think it was behind the St. Elizabeth campus, and if you guys are familiar with that, it was a insane asylum that was there for many decades.
Yep, one of the first psychiatric wards in the nation, actually.
Yeah, and it's housed in a neighborhood called Berry's Farms.
Yeah, which is kind of strange that these kids are just playing along the highway, and it's like, well, now, I mean, of course it's decades later, but that's a pretty busy, like, it's a highway, it's a freeway, it's an interstate, like, why are your children playing? All right, well, we'll get to that later. So they find her body 6 days later. She had been strangled, sodomized. She had cuts on her face, neck, chest, and both hands, so I guess we can assume that she fought off her attacker, or tried to.
Like defensive wounds.
Defensive wounds for sure. Her shoes were missing, but she was fully clothed. And they did find green synthetic fibers, which we'll find out later is kind of important here, on her clothes. So, the medical examiner, after they find her body and all that, they do the autopsy as usual. And they find citrus fruit in her stomach. So it turns out that they did find her body 6 days later, but she had only been dead for about 2 or 3 days, meaning the killer kept her alive for a couple of days, and God knows what that poor girl went through. But it's very strange, because we'll see that this isn't something that he
did for all of his
exactly. It's just kind of like, again, no pattern here. So about 10 weeks later, so this is May. 10 weeks later, what are we talking, like June, July-ish? Yeah, late June. There's a DC Department of Highways and Traffic employee who pulls over on 295 again, which is just north of Bolling Air Force Base, and he saw a body. So he did what you're supposed to do and called the police. Now, this is where the police first start watching the case. This is the second call they received that same day about a body on 295. So officers are dispatched. You'd think they'd go and investigate, but nah, they just ride around and don't see a body. Of course,
drive right by and just say, we ain't seen nothing.
Yep, and of course, assuming that highways look the same, which they may not have, the cement barrier, you're not going to see anything over it.
Yeah.
So logic would tell me, hey, let me get out my car and go look.
I wonder if cement barriers were like a thing back then. You know, they made a lot of changes.
Yeah, that's true.
But either way, they were.
But either way, it's like, exactly. Yeah. So 1 whole week later, they don't find the body the first time the cops are called. The second time, excuse me. So 1 week later, after this phone call and everything, on July 19th, one of the callers who called the first time around went back to the site and discovered that the body was still there. So let's just point out, it is mid-July in DC. It's hot. It is hot as
That's like an understatement of how hot it gets out here in the summertime.
Exactly. Now, mind you, global warming has made it hotter this time around, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume it's about like 80, 90 degrees every day.
It's like Hades, like the devil's balls. That's how hot it is outside.
Exactly.
So, and if you know anything about human bodies, they decay at a fast rate, and the heat makes it even worse. And destroys any evidence.
So the guy who finds this body the second time around has a friend who's actually was a DC police sergeant. Calls him over and is like, yo, this and this. This is the second time I called. Why is this body still here? So this guy comes out, looks for it, and finally they find the body, which is that of 16-year-old Darlenia Johnson. And
it was 15 feet from where the previous victim, Carol, was.
Which 15 feet is not far at all. Like, there's no coincidence there. This is a little too close for comfort. So Darlenia was reported missing on July 9th, a day after her mom saw her headed out to work. She worked at the Oxen Run Rec Center, and she wasn't expected home for another day because there was a sleepover, which was like for kids and staff and all that. So, I mean, she left the house on July 8th. She wasn't expected back until July 9th, but when she didn't come back, her mom, realized that there was something wrong. So she was found. So it had been 11 days after she was reported missing that they found her. And of course, it was so badly decomposed that in order to identify her, they had to cut her fingers off and try and get a fingerprint off of that, which is just, that's adding salt to the wound already.
Yeah. They didn't have DNA back then, so that's the best they could do.
Exactly.
Didn't they also use dental workers back then as well?
Yeah, so I wonder why. Maybe it was just faster to do. Yeah, because, dental records, you would have to, try and find the dentist or something like that, I guess.
I feel like one of the articles I read, they said her face was so badly decomposed, so maybe they couldn't get any dent.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Again, this could have been solved had they just, found the body the first time around. So, again, it was too badly decomposed to find, the exact time of death. But according to some, research I did on Reddit, I found that the cause of death was determined to be strangulation.
Which is the same with all the girls.
Yep, which is the same. So, just 9 days later, the third victim is found. Found?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brenda Faye Crockett, who's just 10 years old.
It's a baby.
The youngest so far. A baby, literally. She was walking to a Safeway, which was near 14th and U Street Northwest, after her mom had sent her out to buy some bread and dog food. She didn't come back after an hour, so her mom went out looking for her.
Yeah, and her body was found without shoes as well, but it came to find out she went outside barefoot. I don't know.
Brenda?
Yeah. Because I read that on another article that she actually left the house barefoot with foam curlers in her hair.
Damn.
Yeah. Don't know why she went to the corner store without shoes on, but...
Why your mom would... Oh, let's not go into that.
Yeah. Nope.
You know what? I'm not going to
we'll have
blame
a bad
anybody.
Episode later.
All right. So she left around 8, so about an hour and a half later, while her mom was out looking for her, the phone rings. Brenda's younger sister was at home with her mom's boyfriend, and she answers the phone, and it was Brenda. So Brenda had told her that a white man had snatched her up and taken her somewhere in Virginia, and that he was going to put her in a taxi to go back home. 25 minutes later, Brenda called again, and this time it was her mom's boyfriend that answered and talked to her. He asked her if she knew where in Virginia she was, and she responded no. And then she asked, did my mother see me? Which is strange, because, if you're in Virginia, why would your mother see you?
Right. And I feel like if your mom would have saw you, she would have,
yeah. So it kind of seems like at this point, maybe she was in the car with the guy, rode past her mom while she was out looking for her.
That's what I think too.
And was hoping that her mom had seen her, which was just even like, that's even sadder just because she's probably thinking, my mom's coming to get me, my mom's coming to get me.
I mean, for her to get a phone, I'm sure the man put her on the phone.
Which is like, yeah.
And she probably said to him, there's my mom. So he was the one who probably made her call to make sure they weren't seen. So he didn't get caught.
And said, tell her I'm a white man so that they're looking for a white man. The whole time it probably isn't a white man. She's not in Virginia. She's probably right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And then, so her mom's boyfriend actually asked, how could your mother see you if you're in Virginia? Told her to put the man on the phone because I guess he realized that he's probably standing right there. And she whispered, well, I'll see you, and hung up the phone. Mm-hmm. So her body was found near Route 50 in Cheverly, which is Maryland. Is that Maryland?
I think so.
Yeah. I'm from Virginia, so D.C., Maryland area is unknown to me.
I was just about to sing the clips. Every time I hear I'm from Virginia, y'all know what song that is.
Hopefully. So it had been less than 8 hours. So all this happened within a span of like maybe 9 hours. Mm-hmm. Her body was found, and she was laying on her back with the scarf that was used to strangle her still tied around her neck. She was wearing all the clothes she was last seen with, but like Nia said, she didn't have shoes on because she left without the shoes. But here you go. So if she left the house without shoes, you'd think that they were dirty from walking to and from the store or to the store. Mm-hmm. Her feet were like
clean,
squeaky clean. So it seemed like he
bathed her or something.
Either washed the feet or washed her. So it kind of, again, this is a very bizarre case.
Yeah, because it seems like some of them he treated, I would say, somewhat well before he did whatever he did.
Yeah, and I mean, she is the youngest, so maybe he touched the little piece of heart. I don't even want to say he had, I don't know what, or maybe he had a foot fetish. I don't know.
Well, because then they say a lot of the women, the shoes were next to them and not on their feet.
Yeah.
And maybe he did.
I mean, I don't know. So, going back to the Washington Post article that I was reading, the most recent one from 2018. I'm just going to throw this in here because it wasn't mentioned who the victim was. So it might be Brenda or it might be another one. One of the officers who actually worked the case realized that one of the girls left the house with straight hair. Her hair had been freshly straightened. But when they found the body, it was curly, like it had been washed. Yeah. So is it like... Is it is it part of his ritual to bathe them after, like before killing them, after killing them? Like, I guess there's just so many questions to this.
Yeah. I mean, there's multiple reasons why her hair could have reverted, but it does seem a little strange that you had this one child where it looks like the feet may have been washed. Right. And this other one where her hair was reverted. Right. So.
Yep. That's true. All right. So at this point, the time frame between the new victims isn't that, so I mean, I guess the largest gap would be that 10-week gap at this point, and then there's a couple days, but now it's months later, so we're in the fall of 1971. It's been 3 months.
October.
Yep, so we're in October. 12-year-old Nino Moshia. I don't want to fuck that name up. Yates.
You see, I'm quiet, right?
Yeah, I don't want to fuck up names.
Okay, well.
All right, so we'll call her, Miss Yates. Disappeared after going out to Safeway 1 block from her house, which was actually on the 4900 block of Benning Road Southeast, which is not far from here.
That's Southeast. We in Northeast.
I got lost in Southeast trying to find your house once.
Whose fault?
And it's not that far. Because I was just like, what? So it's not that far. And Benning Road Northeast is right around the corner, right?
Yeah.
So just take that down and you'll find it.
We got to stop giving all these details. They don't know where we live.
I don't live here.
Rude. So rude.
My bad. All right. So she was on her way. She was actually on her way back. So she made it to Safeway, was on her way back with the thing she bought but she never actually made it back. Mm-hmm. A 16-year-old boy found her body just 2 hours later. So we're getting a little closer here to like he's doing whatever he does to them within like a short span of time.
Yeah.
Found her near Pennsylvania Avenue. I don't know where that is.
East of the district.
East of, that's very specific. And she again had been strangled and raped. Now, actually looking back, it doesn't look like Brenda was Brenda raped? It doesn't look like it, or it wasn't mentioned.
It wasn't mentioned, but all of them did have the green fibers.
Yep, yeah. So Brenda did have the green fibers as well.
And Miss Yates, her body was still warm when found.
Yeah, which is insane. So, I mean, he probably kept her for a good, like, hour and a half or something like that, because she was still warm, which means had they been just a couple minutes, like, early, they probably could have, yep. It's just, I feel like he's getting bolder or more erratic. Yeah.
Because he's not keeping his pattern, he's not keeping his rituals.
Right.
It's almost like his end game is to rape and strangle them, but how he deals with them prior to it depends on the individual. That's what it seems like to me.
And the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, she was still warm. Green synthetic fibers were found. And it looks... so a grocery store clerk actually found, like, the items that she had bought just, like, a couple... Not even blocks away, I think. And I found this on Reddit, which... I read a ton of articles, and there seems to be, like, some contradictions or some say that, like, one girl was stabbed 6 times while the other one says it was actually 4, and then one says that a 16-year-old boy found Miss Yates while the other one says that a grown man found her. So it's just, like, I don't know which is true, but I did see that someone said they saw Miss Yates get into a blue Volkswagen, but didn't think anything of it because it looked like it was her stepmother's car.
Yeah. They had the same exact car.
Yeah, the same exact one. So yeah. I mean, I just want to throw that out there. I don't know how true it is. I don't want to state anything.
So it took for them to find Miss Yates' body before the media started asking questions about whether or not all the killings were connected, and this is like months after the first one, and then that's how the killer got the name of the Freeway Phantom.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it's actually like, I think it's the media is the actual one putting the pressure on the police at this point. Like, they're the ones actually asking questions. It's like the police was just kind of like, oh wait, like, this is similar, like, or maybe they were, like, I'm just talking out my ass maybe, but I mean, at this point, we can just kind of put it on the media that was, like, pushing the police to, like, call this a serial killer.
Yeah.
So 6 weeks after Miss Yates, on November 15th, and this is the oldest victim, 18-year-old Brenda Woodward, which adds to the bizarre nature of this case. Mm-hmm. Woodard, yeah. What did I say, Woodward?
Yeah,
my bad. Woodard. I see a W and O-O-D, and I'm just like, all right. I see wood. All right, let's get back to the seriousness. All right, so Miss Woodard.
Yeah.
Brenda. No, see, so that's another thing. Oh, we'll get to it in a little bit. Let me just finish up this, like, the victims real quick. But she went missing. She had stopped at Ben's Chili Bowl after an evening class with one of her classmates from Cardozo High School in Northwest. Usually the classmate would drive her home, but this, I guess, fateful night, his car was in the shop, so they had to take the bus.
Yes.
So they got on the same bus, but she had to transfer while he kept going on that same bus. She got off on 8th and H Street Northeast because, again, she had to transfer.
We were just over there.
Were we? God. Ugh.
It's creepy, right?
So, damn. We gotta go find this bus stop then. We might have. So, again, a Cheverly police officer. So, I'm assuming this is in Maryland. He actually discovered Miss Woodard's. See, I spelled it different. Woodard. Let's go ahead with Miss Woodard.
Which one is it now?
I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Damn, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't mean to disrespect. I'm a terrible typist. He was on patrol just before 5 a.m. the next morning. So again, it's still technically the night of November 15th, but the morning of November 16th. So it had only been a couple hours. He was on patrol, found her body near Hospital Drive, just south of Route 202 near PG Hospital.
That's by my dad's house.
Oh, man. We were just there like 2 days ago.
Yeah, everything is so close to home.
Which is why, this is just like, it's a perfect one to start off with.
I've actually been to that hospital before, too.
All right. So they found her body. She was fully clothed, although her black turtleneck was inside out, which kind of tells you that she was, like, sexually assaulted, stripped. And then he probably, either she put her clothes back on afterward or he did.
I just find it weird because once you start going through this, you realize that he was a little more meticulous with getting the other girls dressed than this lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a little more careful with the other ones.
Because they were younger, I feel like.
Yeah. So her turtleneck was inside out. Her coat was draped over her body instead of put on, unlike the other girls. And so she was raped, strangled, and stabbed 4 times. I also recall reading that buttons were missing from both her coat and her skirt. Yeah.
And it looks like she also fought back because they did find defensive wounds on her hands. So she did fight back, which is just...
And this is what you were saying where some places said she was stabbed 4 when others said 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know which one it is. If an investigator working on the case would like to come talk to us, I mean, we'll take that opportunity.
Come on down.
I know it's still open, but, I mean, I'm sure you could straighten out some facts. So this is where, like, again, it starts getting bizarre. So we have the first girl, I think her name was also, Brenda Crockett, who was 10, the girl that went missing, and her mom, he made her call her house. This, again, gets super bizarre because they found a note in her pocket. Mm-hmm. The note read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me if you can." And it was signed the Freeway Phantom, which means he was definitely keeping up with the news, definitely looking out for,
anything about him that he could find.
Exactly. And it's just so weird how, like, what's the point of this note? It just kind of feels like he did it to kind of throw police off.
Yeah, I think he wanted to taunt them. And they also said that he had Brenda write the note so that they couldn't track him. Another theory was that based on, because they have the analysts, the handwriting analysts, they said that she wrote it as if she was calm, so they're wondering if she may have known the killer. Right. Yeah. Because if you were upset, you would have been writing erratically. And
although I want to say I don't totally agree with that, because if someone has you captive, say that he's already assaulted her at this point, already maybe like stabbed her once or something like that, you're not going to fight back as hard. You're just going to do whatever, he says at that point. So it's like,
maybe it could go very clear that you need to write it neatly or whatever the case may be.
Or maybe it happened even before and he was like, just write this and I'll let you go. And she was like, all right.
As soon as I started writing it.
Exactly.
I might not have known what tantamount meant, but...
Exactly.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, it could go either way. It could have been that she knew him. It could have been that she just, was doing what she was told. Yeah. So we're getting on to the last victim, which happened... They found her 10 months later, so it's almost been a year. It makes you wonder where he was, what he was doing for those 10 months that, like, he just went MIA. Mm-hmm. So the police were pretty much, sure that he had left the area or gotten locked up, that was the end of it. But on September 6th, I don't know how to say that. My English isn't very good.
September 6th.
6th?
Yeah.
September 6th, 1972, the body of Diane Williams, who was 17, was found by a trucker off of 295 south of the DC line. She had been raped and strangled. And according to Reddit, again, I don't know how much I can, is believable, because I'm pretty sure Reddit is people, like, writing these things. Yeah. So I don't know where it came from. I didn't really find that same information on the Washington Post articles that I read, but, why not throw it in here? She was found fully clothed but barefoot, and her shoes had been placed alongside her body. So again, here, barefoot, no shoes.
He likes the feet.
I'm leaning towards there's a foot fetish here. Hey, we don't kink shame all the time.
Respect his agency. Maybe not.
Never. That's not.
No, that's not.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Miss Diane Williams was killed after spending the evening with her boyfriend. And he walked her to the bus stop because she was going to take the bus home. But she never made it home. And this is where I guess we can start getting into where the police start fucking shit up.
Police, fuck it up.
So semen was found on Miss Diane Williams' clothes, but the police, knowing that she had spent the night at her boyfriend's, just assumed that they had gotten, physical or, gotten nasty and had sex. But it turns out that a long time after, I want to say like weeks, maybe months later, they finally determined that they didn't have intercourse and that the semen belonged to the killer, probably. But they never swabbed it because they assumed it was the boyfriend's.
Yeah, and by the time they had DNA capabilities, they lost the evidence. So
yeah, so I guess
there too.
Yeah, I guess we can get into that right now.
Okay, so do you mind if I do this?
You go ahead. Go ahead,
Yeah.
girl. Take a sip of my tea.
At the time, the Metropolitan DC Police, the DC Police Department, I don't know why it's so long. They they kept their files and they were maintained by detectives assigned to the case. And many a times they were kept in closets. They were extremely disorganized. And I remember reading that some people said they will go in there and you would just see files spilling out of boxes. So evidence could have got mixed together from case to case. You just never know what was going on.
Any type of,
They could have gotten destroyed because of the environment they were in.
Exactly.
So because of this, the Freeway Phantom case files have been lost, along with all the notes, and all of the investigators assigned as primary or of the task force have either retired or are now deceased. Many of them passed away because it was such a long time ago. And
I'm also going to add that it was 4 jurisdictions involved in this case.
Oh, yeah, because Maryland had to get involved as well because...
So it was Montgomery County, PG County, and Maryland State Police all working it, as well as DC homicides and sex squads. So that's 4, and the FBI. Yeah. So we had all these people working the case. Of course, things are going to get lost in the shuffle. I'm sure communication isn't the best because one side wants to get all like the credit for the, it's just like adding to the whole mix up of everything.
Yeah.
And adding to that, the fact that these are young black girls in the 1970s in DC.
Right. I'm actually surprised they got as much press as they did at that time, because even nowadays when there's minorities involved, the media seems to overlook it, and then sometimes law enforcement they put it on the back burner. Exactly. They don't see it as important as when it's a
because it took it wasn't until the 5th, almost the final victim, for the police to finally come out and be like, yeah, we got a serial killer on our hands, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide everybody's in danger.
Right.
Like, it took that long for them to realize that there was a problem, when it should have taken the very first case to realize this is a really young girl who got brutally murdered. Like, this needs to be all hands on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was hard reading how like just negligent everyone was. Yeah. Yeah, it was. So the FBI actually did do, I guess, a pretty good job. They assigned a whole task force to run and investigate the case in 1974, which was about 2 years after the start, 2-3 years after the start. They ran down every single lead that they had. They developed hundreds of suspects, which actually included, and this is like pretty important, it included, so the suspects included a 4-star general, St. Elizabeth's, which again was at Psychiatric Hospital, DC. So one of the psychiatrists was actually a suspect. And a wealthy Prince George's developer who owned property in Southeast. But I guess they weren't strong enough, so they were kind of eliminated. But we'll go ahead and move on to who the actual, I guess the primary / best fitting suspects were.
Yeah, there were a group called the Green Vega Rapists.
Yep. But I wanted to say first before, so the FBI Crime Analysis Unit, so I guess it could be like if y'all watch Criminal Minds, which I'm sure y'all do, which basically would be the BAU, which is the Behavioral Analysis Unit within the FBI. I don't know if it's like that's the actual name or if that's just a Criminal Minds name. But basically they set up like a profile of who they think this killer would be. So the killer would have at least a high school education with average or above average intelligence, and he would be employed. He would know how to start conversations with women, but wouldn't know how to maintain a healthy relationship with women.
This sounds like all them fuckboys right now. Y'all might want to be careful.
So he either lived alone or with an older woman, like an aunt, sister, or mom, grandma, something like that. So mama's boy. And he definitely knew the neighborhood where he abducted and disposed of the girls. Like that's for sure. He definitely knew his surroundings. So like Ania said before, one of the main suspects, plural, would be the Green Vega rapist, which was insane when I found out that this was a thing here. Like the fact that there was like a gang of people, men, whatever, going around and just raping and kidnapping these young girls was insane. Yeah. Like I had never heard of that.
Me either. I mean, you usually hear it's like one person and maybe their friend finds out about it or whatever, but a whole gang of people and they're just
riding. This is like what they did. They were just riding around, kidnapping little girls. And the most insane thing was that I tried to find information on him, but there wasn't much. Everything was connected to this case. There wasn't like an individual like case file on him or anything like that, which is just scary. Yeah. Because fun fact, actually, I was reading that there was like, I think either one or two of them is actually supposed to be paroled in 2019, which is just around the corner. One was paroled in 1988. I think one was paroled right after. So they're out here. They are out here.
They're probably old and decrepit now. I don't know how much they're going to be able to do. If they were paroled in 1988, I was one. So
they're about adults. Like 50. They're about like 50 years old. You could still.
Oh, yeah, they're like my parents' age.
Yeah, it's scary.
Ugh.
So let's go ahead and get into who they are. Well, some of them, because I'm pretty sure there's more. But basically, we're just going to touch on Nathaniel Davis, Morris J. Warren, and Melvin Gray, who were members of this Green Vega rapist gang. And the name actually comes from the car that they drove around in, which was a green Chevrolet Vega. And actually, shout out Young Gray, shout out Bay. I was discussing this case with him before, and he kind of threw out was the interior gray, like the green fibers that they found on the girls' clothes.
I thought the fibers were green.
Yeah, it's a green Vega.
The outside's green. I thought he said that were the interior gray. My bad.
No. Did I say gray? No, I meant the interior green.
Look, an ugly car. The outside and the inside is green.
It's the 70s.
Ugh. Well, yeah, that's true.
But that's like a good point. Like, I didn't even realize that when reading this. Like, maybe the green fiber. Okay, but anyways. So, these members, again, just were riding around, fucking shit up, which is just, ugh. But in an article that I found from the 1980s. So, again, Mr. Nathaniel Davis, Morris J. Warren, and Melvin Gray actually spoke to the police and gave statements which implied that they were somehow involved in these cases, in the Phantom Freeway Killer cases. So I think it was one of them who came out first, implying that it was his like friend, and then they all kind of just pointed at each other and whatever. So Melvin Gray was actually shown a picture of Miss Yates, and he positively identified her as being the girl that they had picked up on Benning Road. He was also shown a picture of Miss Carol Denise Spinks, which is the first victim, and he identified her as a little girl who was in their company, which she was 13, in their company on 2 occasions in his apartment. Again, the first victim was held for a couple of days.
So this is my thing. Let's say that, I don't want to think about this, but it sounds like they were passing the little girls around.
Basically.
And maybe this guy, maybe he was like a ringleader of the Vega or whatever, or his ties to them was maybe they brought people to him. I don't know.
You're saying it's one guy?
Like the freeway.
It's one guy?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one guy. And because he may have known what they were doing some kind of way, that maybe he had them bring the girls to him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's where it gets kind of tricky, where if it was this Green Vega rapist, it kind of seems like it's just one person doing it. Mm-hmm. I don't think, I don't know, we don't know what their actual injuries were, but you'd think if it was like a handful of guys, there'd be like more evidence or something. Yeah. I don't know.
It sounds like it reminds me of like a sex trafficking situation.
Basically. And also, like, if it's like that, why didn't they kill all the people that they raped? All the girls that they raped?
Maybe they did.
Maybe they did. Shit, that's right. Whew. All right, so that was Melvin Gray, who positively identified the 2 girls. And then now Morris J. Warren, he actually took detectives to the location where Brenda Woodard had been kidnapped, raped, and murdered, and showed them the alleged locations of where Darlenia Johnson was, I guess, kidnapped, murdered, and all that as well. But actually, even though he thought he was showing them the locations of Darlenia's kidnapping and all that, he actually took them to Brenda Crockett's, where her body was found. So it seemed like he didn't really know either.
Or he got it confused.
Yeah. But either way, I mean, he's showing them locations where
bodies were found.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, that just seems a little too weird to me. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I guess we're going to touch on police fucking shit up again. So their cooperation was all because, police are promising them, hey, we'll do this for you. Or I guess they came up and were like, yo, we got this information. Of course, like, a lot of criminals do that. They'll be like, prolonging their case. They're already, like, the case that they're involved in already, just by saying, yo, I'm involved in this other case. Like, let's work on this and work some sort of deal out. But so during this time, the elections for the PG County State's Attorney were actually going on, and the actual state attorney who was already in office was seeking re-election.
Okay.
And it turns out that he came out during his, like, whole re-election, like, what is that called? Like, when they go around?
When they campaign?
Oh, there you go. Campaign. That's the word I'm looking for. Teamwork makes a dream work.
The current orange guy still does campaign.
Look, I don't want to talk about that Cheeto in office.
All right.
So he was seeking re-election and thought that coming out and saying that they found new and credible evidence and information, and that they had people that they were talking to, he thought that would help him with his re-election, because it was kind of a big case, mm-hmm. and it was still, again, a cold case. So, I mean, who doesn't want to solve this case? And he thought that it would help him. But by doing this, everyone shut their mouth immediately. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to help anymore. They knew that this, basically they weren't going to get the deal that they wanted, because everybody was just, like, talking shit.
Right.
And so then, I mean, at that point, everyone shuts up. No one wants to talk, and I guess that's just where it gets left off. I mean, there was nothing else they could do because no one wanted to talk. Mm-hmm. And then, after that, since, I mean, they had nothing else to go on, in this new Washington Post article, that one of the detectives who was working on the case is actually like, well, the information that they gave was information that was out in the news. The locations of the bodies, where they had been abducted. So anyone could have really, like, said, hey, I know where to go. And the fact that he got them confused is probably because he read it wrong or something. So, I mean, although you want to think it is credible, you can't really be for sure.
Right.
So we're going to get on to the last one, and I think which is the most interesting, as well as the one that I think may be the killer.
Yeah, I felt the same way about this one. It's what they find is so strikingly similar to what went on that there's no way you're going to tell me this isn't the guy.
Exactly. And then, like, there's times where he's locked up where it kind of matches, like, when the killing stopped.
Yeah.
So it's just like...
I mean, I still feel like there's some connection to the Vega people, but they may not have been the one that actually did it.
And I mean, again, this is all going on within a relatively, like, small area.
Yeah, the DMV area is very small. Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody. So this guy that we're about to talk about could be somehow involved with these other guys. Or something. Like, we don't know. All right, so we're going to go back to 1980s, and this is a Washington Post interview that I found from back then. And actually one of the main detectives on the case, he believed the murders were conducted by a lone black individual about 50 years old at the time, which is older. Like, that's pretty old. That's pretty old.
Yeah.
And someone that no one would pay any special attention to. Mm-hmm. So, they believe that this guy could have been convicted of any sexual offenses before, that he's probably in custody. So again, we're talking about, this is in the 1980s. So the detective at that time thought that he was incarcerated at that time. So in the 1980s. And he said that the guy basically that he was describing was a former mental patient. And he said at the time that he had proof, but there was really no physical evidence to tie him to the case, which is the reason why they couldn't do anything. So fast forward to 2018. What is it, like 30 years later?
Trying to be funny?
No, I'm serious. 1980?
1980 to now?
Yeah, it's like 30, 40 years old.
Yeah.
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 Later, an individual, so the guy we were talking about before, who that detective was kind of naming without naming, is actually Robert Askins.
Yeah.
And was a computer technician, and he was actually a former patient at St. Elizabeth's, which again was a psychiatric institution.
Mm-hmm. He served time for poisoning a prostitute.
Sex worker.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Nia, get your shit straight.
I don't mean to offend anybody.
And he was actually serving, for something that happened in 1938, which now you think about it, is just like the third. Is that the Great Depression? Am I getting my shit wrong?
I thought that was the 20s. Close enough.
Look.
Clearly we didn't pay much attention in history.
Look, I graduated way too long ago. So he was serving time at St. Elizabeth's. But he was freed in 1958, which is just about 20 years. After, again, the judicial system fucked shit up.
Wait, I didn't catch this before. So he spent 20 years in an insane asylum?
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been let go. He was baddie at that point, especially the way insane asylums were back then. Bruh.
Doesn't he look like a better suspect? Just
off
deeper,
that alone.
The deeper we go
the fact
in.
that some of the bodies were found behind St. Elizabeth, because what we've seen in other cases dealing with the insane asylums, like what's the Cropsey story?
Yeah.
Like, the patients will return to those areas because that's all they knew.
Exactly. And it's looking more and more like it might be this fella.
All right.
Yeah, so he was freed after 20 years in a psychiatric institute.
I think that's the more politically correct word.
Nia.
Look, you said it earlier.
I corrected myself. So he was freed because of a legal technicality. I don't know what exactly that technicality was, but it sounds like it probably wasn't supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. But he was freed. So that was like maybe like 13, 14 years before the first murder, which seems like, I don't know, 50 years old seems like a little old to be out here
marking people.
Yeah, and it's like the Phantom Freeway Killer obviously had a car.
Yeah.
After 20 years in a psychiatric institute, are we going to trust this man with a car? Is the state going to trust him with the car?
I mean, they're letting people buy guns now without a
You know what?
I have a point there.
I'm gonna clap on that, yeah, because that was a perfect. So it looks like he committed like some rapes or something like that, and so they get a warrant on him. It was a rape or an assault unrelated to this Phantom Freeway Killer case. I probably should have gone more in depth on that or researched it more, but look, we'll get better as we go. So police get the warrant. They search his row house, and they found his appellate court's opinion, I guess, which is like the statement that they write to get their to get the appeal going or something like that.
Yeah, I think
something so. that like the
has to do with conviction.
Yeah, so I think it's his appeal. He wrote something in his appeal, but in it he uses the word tantamount, which I haven't really ever heard before.
I wasn't sure how to pronounce it at first. So I never heard it either.
So it's not a word that everyone's using like just day to day. So it's kind of suspicious. And they talked to someone who knew him, and it seems like it's a word that he used often.
Yeah, he used it a lot to emphasize how important or stress how important things were to him.
Which, again, is just very odd and, like, too close for comfort, too much of a coincidence. Yeah. It's just, yeah.
Because frankly, I've never heard this word before.
I really don't want to go ahead and say what it means because I don't know. It kind of sounds important. It kind of sounds like it's leading up to, or I don't know. You know what? I'm not going to get into that. But y'all are going to roast the shit out of me.
The fact that he used these type of words tells me that he was educated.
Yes.
More educated than we are, but educated.
In the house, aside from that, they found soiled women's scarves, photos of young girls and women's scarves. Let's go back to one of the victims who was strangled with her scarf. So yeah, he might have just used scarves to kill them all and just took them, and he just that was part of his thing. Yeah,
scarves and feet.
So they found photos of girls and young women, and a knife used in another crime, and then an essay from a girl. So if we go back to that Crockett, I think it was Brenda Crockett, the Phantom Freeway Killer made her write the note. Mm-hmm. So he has an essay from the girl in his house, from some girl in his house. So it seems like that may also be a thing. Maybe he stuffed it in her pocket this time, but he actually like made the other victims
write it for him.
We don't know. It just seems like it's a lot of things that are connecting, and it's
very ritualistic. It seems
very, very. Yeah. So.
So the police got a warrant after that.
Another warrant, yeah, about a month later.
So that they could search his vehicle, and they found 2 buttons. And a gold earring under his back seat. And
I get, who was it? Was it the 18-year-old?
The 18-year-old that had missing buttons from her skirt and jacket.
So,
coat.
Yeah. But they still didn't have enough evidence physical evidence to tie him back to any of the 6 girls. Fibers, the fibers found in 5 of the 6 victims didn't match any fibers found in his home or car, which was just like, damn. And hairs found on the girls came back negative. But Askins was convicted of kidnapping and raping 2 women in the district several years after the Freeway killings. And he received a life sentence, and he is now dead. He died in 2010 at the old-ass age of 91.
Damn, evil motherfuckers live a long time.
My mom has like this one saying about how like the eviler or the like the worse you are in life, the longer you live because you have shit to pay for.
Damn.
But yeah, so that was
pretty nice. That means we gonna die tomorrow.
I hope not. Can we at least upload this podcast before we die? But yeah, that was pretty much the case of the Freeway Phantom Killer. That's
yeah. So that case was pretty heavy. I don't understand people who kill anyway, but like when it comes to kids, it's just even worse. Like, what is it? I think someone said it in the video we watched about this, but like, what's appealing about a little girl?
And that's one thing that to me is just like adds to the bizarre nature of this case. So you have a 13-year-old, you have a 12-year-old, you have a 10-year-old, and then you have 17 and 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
Now, I know all of them weren't raped, but I'm assuming, or I want to say that a lot of pedophiles that go for these young girls, it's their thing.
Yeah.
Like, they like the prepubescence, they like, you know, they like that. And then you're going to go ahead for a 17 and 18-year-old who are women at this point.
I mean, black don't crack, so maybe he wasn't sure about their age. That's why I'm not too sure that the killer was black. I'm just saying. Because we tend to age pretty well.
But I'm pretty sure you could tell a difference
people.
between a 10 and an 18-year-old.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure you could tell. Like, that's one of the things where it was just like, is it one person? But, of course, if it was this Robert Askins guy, his mental state would not let him probably, like, be like, yeah, I'm only go for prepubescent girls. It was just like, who was there at that time? Do what it's like, I feel like his mental state is probably what added to the bizarre nature of this.
And then also what sticks out to me is it was a different time, because I would not send my 10-year-old to the store by themselves
at all,
or but the time was different. Kids played outside alone a lot, and
exactly.
And it changed because we've learned from these cases to keep a better eye on our kids, because there's whack jobs out here.
Your neighbor could be a whack job.
Why gotta be my
No, I mean you, the people listening.
Just joking.
Look to your left, look to your right. That's probably a psycho sitting next to you.
I'm just saying. Make sure you keep your doors locked. Just saying.
So, question. Yeah. What's your theory?
I kind of told y'all a little bit already, but my theory is I do think that the guys in that Vega thing have some type of connection to this Freeway Killer. As we stated, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area is very small. Most people know each other. And usually if it's snatching kids and young women like this, it sounds like some type of sex trafficking situation. Now, the race of the killer, because that did come up, I am not sure about that, because it's not typically something that a person of color does. Like, serial killers are typically white males. Typically. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but typically. So that kind of just has me a little weirded out about that. But at the same hand, if he was a white man, why would he tell the little girl to tell them that he was a white man? Because then it points to him even more.
Right.
Unless it was used to throw them off because of the time in which it was going on, because it wasn't so long after all the segregation and all those type of, it was still, even though we still deal with racial issues now, it was a lot worse back then. Yep. So, I don't know. What's yours?
So I don't know what to think exactly, but one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that one of the bodies was found close to Bowling's Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. Andrews Air Force Base isn't too far.
Nope.
Fort Myer, although in Virginia, isn't too far from
neither is Fort Meade.
Fort Meade, there you go. Like, there's a lot of different military bases. The Pentagon isn't too far either. It just seems like the fact that the murders took place, like, the time between them is so weird, and there was that almost whole year gap between it. It kind of seems like this person was either deployed overseas or to another state, and that's why. It's very bizarre to me. And of course, if they were deployed overseas, they could have continued doing this God knows where, and no one would know. Yeah, because a lot of, especially because they said there was, they were picketing, what was it, the Vietnam War or something like that at the time? Yep. And there have been cases that came out that of the mistreatment of the native peoples in those countries when they went there, that greatly went unreported because people didn't care. And the type of stuff that they did to these people were often sickening. And this could have very well been his practice run. Yeah. For him being deployed. Yeah. Because he started there and came here and exactly. He couldn't stop. And it was just like, I got to continue while I'm here. And then he gets deployed again. Because I have a hard time believing someone who does this brutal thing over and over again is just going to stop. But here's my thing about that, though. If, let's say this was a guy in the military, if he was in that psychiatric ward. Thank you. If he was at St. Elizabeth, I don't think he would have been allowed to be in the military. maybe he wasn't at St. Elizabeth's. Maybe this is a completely different person.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I don't think it was this Askins guy or like a psychiatrist there. It could have very well been that 4-star general that they talked about.
It's just...
There's so many possibilities. And again, this case is still open. It's a cold case. It's never been solved. It doesn't seem like we're getting any closer because the DNA was, again, just...
Yeah, tossed to the wayside. Who knows where it is?
Who knows where? No one knows where it is.
But developments happen every day, B, so you don't know what could happen.
Hopefully, I hope so, because it's one of the cases that, like, I feel like I'm going to keep following up on this just because I invested so much time already. And I know there's so many loose ends that maybe I'll be like 60 one day and they'll discover who it was.
It could be like the old lady from Titanic with the Hope Diamond. Just like they finally did it.
My Hope Journal.
Right?
Full of these notes.
So, that was our first podcast.
That was episode 1 of Antisocial Murder Club.
What? So, if you'd like to be a member of Antisocial...
You can't sit with us.
Yeah, you can't.
It's just 2 of us, all right?
I said that should have been our tagline instead.
You can't sit with us.
But if you like us, follow us. If you're listening, it's on SoundCloud, but we're looking into ways of getting up on... It
will be on iTunes eventually.
Yes, because we are Apple Gang, so we will have things up there.
Email us any questions or any detail, anything that you have. We are interested in murders... in any murder, actually, like, especially unknown. So, like... Especially
unknown murders, especially murders dealing with people of color, because we feel like they don't get as much coverage, so we're here to put it out there.
Exactly. Whether it's the killer themselves or the victims, we want to know.
Yeah, we want to know.
Yeah, we're looking into it now. We have an email where you can email us, AntiSocialMurderClub@gmail.com.
Yep. You can send all your inquiries there if you have any questions or... Well, no. We're not doing listening letters or whatever those things on this podcast.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
So,
but
none of those type of questions. But if you
we want to hear from you.
Yeah, if you have a murder that you're interested in hearing us cover, let us know. Send us the information and we will do the research and get it out there.
We'll do our best.
And we'll even shout you out to say that you're the one who introduced us to it.
Exactly.
So, I guess we're going to wrap it up here. But also, shout out to our homies over at Doing Enough Podcast. If you're interested in fashion and pop culture and things
they don't
like
do
that,
murder, so don't expect any murder talk.
Yeah, they won't talk about it.
If you got freaked out by this podcast and need something, funny, Young Gray and D.A over there got you with the comedies.
Yes.
But we'll be back next week.
Next week? All right.
We'll be back whenever. We'll be back whenever.
Yeah,
Y'all
we're trying to figure out this schedule here. But yeah, you stay tuned and we'll check you out next time.
We'll be back. See you later.
Bye.
Don't get murdered.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.